And they named it Hibernia, after the Roman goddess of winter, which is where we get hibernation, Hibernia, and that's also where we get our national symbol, the harp. Hibernia's symbol was a harp. Ireland is the only country in the world to have a musical instrument as our national symbol. And that's because we're awesome. Yeah, that's why. And speaking of awesome things and awesome people, this is the north side of Dublin City. And over there is the south side. Boo, boo, boo. Bunch of posh wankers over there. Historically speaking, the south side of the city, when I was a little boy, was where all the rich, wealthy, affluent people were, where it was always sunny and happy and everyone was beautiful and young and the children have bubblegum smiles and it's all amazing. And over here on the north side is where you could find an argument if you were so inclined. There really isn't much difference anymore, to be honest with you, because Dublin, Ireland suffered the wealth boom of the late 80s, 90s, and we had the fastest growing economy in the history of the world. That's a statistical fact. That's not my opinion, that is a fact. And the phenomenon of free market enterprise capitalism happened, where you get gentrification, which is a phenomenon of economics. The faster your rate of economic growth, the faster your rate of gentrification. I'm not making a social commentary on whether this is good or bad. It's just what happens in free market economics. So there isn't really much difference, to be honest with you, from north and south side, because everybody's kind of getting pushed out. So but it is still a wonderful place. Over to your right hand side, see all across the road there, that's all Temple Bar. And Temple Bar is not one pub, it's a district. All of that across the road, that all used to be a sandbar. You guys know what that is? Or a sandbank, maybe? An area along a waterway where material is dissolved or suspended in the water and it'll precipitate along the bank as silt. And silt is shite because you can't build on it. If you build foundations on silt, they'll sink. So in the late 1600s, a fella called Sir William Temple, he walled back the River Liffey bit by bit. It used to be 5 times wider than it is now, and he walled it back and he reclaimed the sandbar, and it got forever known as Temple's Bar. And it was shite. It was terrible. It was really run down, dilapidated. It was never built up. So they decided to tear it all up to build a bus depot. And then in the 1950s, a huge amount of North American tourists were rediscovering their Irish heritage, and they said, whoa, an old traditional Irish village in the middle of Dublin. We would have loved that. And the Irish Tourism Board said, whoa, hang on a minute now. Wealthy North Americans? That changes everything. And they ripped up the bus depot, which wasn't even finished, and they turned it into this traditional Irish village of Irish dancing and music and food, and it was honestly an amazing cultural and economic success, because the buildings were all dilapidated crap. No one would live in them, or no reason, you know what I mean? And they're like, we're gonna have to just repair this ad hominem. Like, you're gonna get people knocking in the middle of like 5 a.m. Yeah, here, we're from the council, we're here to fix the roof. And you're like, I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, barge through your house, making a mess. Who's gonna want to live here? Who's gonna make it fun? They said, I know who'll take this. The artists. Are you artists? Can I see your portfolio of work? Yeah, very nice. Congratulations. You guys just got 10 years free rent in the city centre. And as we all know, artists are often eccentric, sexy weirdos. Yeah, and they started to drink wine and, you know, sing in the streets. The beautiful person come up and make love to me in my apartment, all this crazy stuff. And it became one of the coolest hotspots of Europe, yeah. So now we are on O'Connell Street. Look at that. That's a great one there. All the city lights. Me and Shane set that up for you there this morning. Yeah. Well, he did most of the heavy lifting, to be honest. I'm more of a supervisor kind of guy, you know, like. Yeah, hands in my pockets. That's wrong. Yeah, you might want to do that again there. So O'Connell Street is named after Daniel O'Connell, one of our national heroes. He emancipated the Catholics in 1829. He was an incredible man because he did it non-violently. One of the rarest examples of history. People who try and change the world without violence. You know why that's so rare? Because it doesn't work. It does not work. And he did it. He was British law against British law. He was a very rare Irish Catholic aristocrat. Very, very rare. They usually made their money by trading with France, who were also Catholic, like Hennessy's, you know, Hennessy, brandy, the whiskey. So that would be an example of one of those business opportunities. And as a young man, he was in France. As a young boy, he was in France during the 1789 French Revolution, and which, you know, did a lot of good for the world, and you could argue a lot of good came out of it. Violence is horrific. If you ever really see it up close, there's nothing pretty about it. The mob will descend to animals, to the lowest common denominator, and they basically went howling for blood. And they found a carriage. Rich people, kill him! And it was just him and his little brother. They're only kids, and his earliest memories are the hands reaching through the window trying to get him. If they'd even got a grip of him, they'd have torn him to shreds. The horses panicked, bolted, and ran. And, you know, a big giant carriage, people jumped out of the way. That's what saved his life, and he forever disavowed violence and said, I will be a pacifist, but I will fight. I will fight for my people. I'll use my mind. So he trained as a barrister and a solicitor, and he used British law against British law. He studied the Constitution, he studied the law, and it was, in his time, it was illegal for Catholics to vote, own land, hold public office. They couldn't own money or aggregate wealth, which means they couldn't start a business and escape poverty. They weren't allowed to own any kind of weapon, firearm. They couldn't afford one. They couldn't even improvise one out of a sharpened stick. They couldn't even own a horse. And he said, screw this. He approaches the British legislator and says, I want to run for public office. And they say, what are you talking about? No Catholic can take a seat in Parliament. Yeah, I want to run for public office. What, are you deaf? I said, no Catholic can run for public office. Yeah, are you not deaf? I said I want to run for public office. Listen, there's no time for your smart arse. Let's look at the law. What does it say? Specifically, it says a Catholic cannot take a seat in Parliament, yeah? It doesn't say anything about running for office though, does it? Yeah, so he ran for office, wins in a landslide, and then approached the British government and said, you're the guardians of democracy, you're the shining light of civilization in the dark. This is an outrage. This is a miscarriage of justice. This is a travesty. And they're like, just shut up, we get it, right? We'll change the goddamn law. Excellent. Changing the legislator is a sacred process. The laws, particularly literally in England, still literally sacred today. It's a big deal. Once you open the legislator and said, right, let's get rid of these other stuff. Catholics can't start a business. They can't contribute to the economy. This causes more problems than it solves. And he changed the world. Yeah, and he did it non-violent. That's why he's my personal hero. Absolutely amazing guy. I'll give you more trivia about him there. Look, a cat! Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And this here beside you is the Garden of Remembrance. This is a tribute to any individuals that died in Irish to the service to the idea of the Irish state. I have some friends who told me this is actually a Garden of Remembrance to any Irish people who died in any conflict around the world. It isn't. But I didn't argue with him. I was like, yeah man, sure, no water. See the swans at the back, and you see the statue at the back. Come up, we're turning right, and you'll see it. You get a bit of a better view of it there. They are the children of Lear. That's some of Irish mythology. The Irish mythology is incredibly rich. It's like Greek mythology, you know, like really detailed, incredible stories, and they're all typically fables. You know, it's kind of life lessons of greed and avarice, revenge. They'll just destroy your life. You won't win, and it's these kind of tales. So that's a tale where these children, they have an evil stepmother who curses them and turns them into swans for 900 years, and then at the end the spell is broken and they just rapidly age and die. Yeah, Irish history is lots of misery. Generally we're like, what do you want? You know what I mean? A piece of candy and a slap on the back, good luck. Yeah. This here to the right is the Gate Theatre. That's where a very famous artist called Orson Welles got his break. You might have heard of him. His great work was Citizen Kane. That's his great contribution to international art. And he, great con, man. Oh, one of the best. He just showed up and was like, yeah, I'm really famous in America. Yeah, I'm like a movie star. They're like, really? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've never heard of you. You wouldn't. You're ignorant. And he faked it till he made it. And then he went back to America and was like, no, I'm really a movie star now. And they were like, oh, we remember you. He was like, no, I actually am now. Which is really cool. So on O'Connell Street, we're going to see, look at these, the lights are really beautiful. I really like what they do for winter. It's really nice. Ahead of us, when the bus moves, if you kind of hold off for a second, Shane, just give them a little bit of space, and that way we can see our incredible national monument, the Spire of Light. Look at that. Only we in Ireland could come up with something so efficient. Only Irish engineering could come up with something so brilliant. Yeah, it's amazing. And it was a bargain. It only cost 7.2 million euros to build that giant pole sticking out of the ground. It was intended to be called the Millennium Spire, but it wasn't finished until 2004, so I couldn't call it that. So its real name is the Spire of Light, because it was intended to light up at night time, to glow and light up the sky. And we plugged it in and it didn't work. So we call it the Spire of Shite. This is quite beside the River Liffey, which it's close proximity, and it's why we call it the Stiffy by the Liffey. Yeah. You've obviously, its phallic shape has given it quite a number of nicknames. We call it the erection at the intersection, the pole and the hole, the rod to God, the stiletto and the ghetto. They go on and on. To the left, you'll see something really cool, an amazing art piece. There's a couple of them there, but that is the portal. This was intended to go straight to New York, and it did for a while. And there was two of them, and then some people showed some various images to each other and body parts, and they were like, maybe we'll just switch it around a bit. So now they've been set up all around the world, and they flip to different locations. It's kind of nice to just go and make a big kind of love heart, and just, good vibes. To the right, out to the right, see that beautiful building there? That is the General Post Office, the GPO. That was the military headquarters for the 1916 rebellion. In 1916, Ireland did a military uprising against the British Empire. It was a disaster. It was only ever going to be a disaster. There was no chance. We fought the British military in 1916. I think it's fair to say probably the strongest military in the world at that point. I would say they were, or at least definitely one of, we're kids with guns. We have not. Imagine someone gave your little brother and his friends a bunch of rifles when they're like 15, 16. Went off you go and fight the United States military there. Good luck. You're goosed. You haven't a chance. So they fought quite valiantly, but they surrendered after 5 or 6 days, and they were executed without trial. The leaders were executed without trial, which was the stupidest political decision they could have made. That turned them into heroes and martyrs, galvanized support for the rebellion. Yeah, incredible. So it's the beginnings of our freedom. After that, the survivors copied the Americans. Yeah, the Yanks. How the hell did the Yanks do it? Bunch of farmers, bunch of ragtag militias took on the invincible British military of 1776 and won. That's not possible. Like, really, it isn't, because France had a lot to do with the old American Revolution. I think the American history books like to omit that little detail every now and again. But even without French support, the American militias do unbelievably well against just a clearly far superior military foe, because they utilize this brutal, horrific, nasty but effective new tactic called guerrilla warfare, which is to fight dirty, to fight without honor. The origins of what we call modern terrorism today. Brutal and effective, and we copied it. We did it here. We also engaged in that, did the military uprising campaign called the War of Independence, which was incredibly effective and forced the British Empire to its knees. We are now crossing the O'Connell Bridge over the River Liffey. That bridge is quite unusual. It's one of the only bridges in the world that's wider than it is long. Not too many fellas can say that.